All right, I'm Faraaz. This is my first talk ever, so pretty nervous. Thank you. And I don't use Ember at all, but I love this group. And to kind of like have some fun, I'm gonna play a little game. I'm gonna need your help to call me out. If I say or like 3 times throughout this talk, after like the About Me section, then I'll do the rest of the talk with a grumpy cat hat on. And I'll probably do that in the first 2 minutes. Hopefully y'all don't notice, but I'm going to talk about this book, Crucial Conversations. Has anyone heard of it or read it? You have? Awesome. I really like it, and it applies a lot of aspects of my life. The title, I tried to be a little clever, but it's okay if you don't get it. Only 1 out of 4 jokes of mine like actually land. But if you haven't heard of Hunger Games or Kat-niss, she's the main character from a trilogy of books and movies where these 2 kids from each district in a futuristic world get forced to participate in a battle where only one is supposed to survive. So that's that, and then that's Grumpy Cat, perpetually grumpy.
Your cat?
Oh, I wish. No. But I'm obsessed. A little about me. I love board games. Probably said that on the meetup. Pandemic is an awesome game where you collaborate to prevent a disease outbreak, and each person has a different role that can do different things. And another game that I play is Dixit, which is a pictorial game. So everyone has picture cards, and one person has to say like a phrase or a word, and everyone has to put down anonymously what picture they think represents that word or phrase, and everyone guesses. It's a lot of fun. So check it out. I'm currently working at Risk Pulse. It's a startup in town. We do risk management for supply chain companies across the country, focusing specifically on weather right now, but we're pulling in a lot of different information like shootings and protests. This is a picture, a snapshot of a couple of days ago, a tropical storm, and I would watch out for 99L. That's been making the news a lot. Might hit Florida, but yeah. Sorry. I'll try to press Control Q and control the weather.
That'd be great.
The book starts off with this quote, which is, "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it's taken place," by George Bernard Shaw. So I feel like a lot of the root of a lot of problems is context and expecting other people to have the same context as you. And so, yeah, I really like that quote. I'll begin by defining a crucial conversation. It has 3 characteristics, usually high stakes, high emotions, and opposing opinions. And the stakes part, I'm a little kind of hesitant to kind of use that. It usually sounds like it's critical or life-threatening, but it could be anything important to you. So a couple examples in like different aspects. So if you're in a relationship, one person might feel like the other isn't doing a lot of, or isn't contributing a lot of time into the relationship or picking up on responsibilities. So that's something that everyone, or both sides, feel strongly about, because one is getting accused of, not putting a lot of effort, and the other one's feeling a lot of emotion about being taken advantage of. So that's relationships. At work, you could feel that you're being asked to do too much, or you have a manager or a coworker who's abrasive or really sarcastic, and just you don't get along well. And there's also open source, of course, where you put in a lot of your free time and efforts into a project you really care about, and then there's trolls that come by and tell you you're stupid or you shouldn't exist. So that's another example of something that might be high stakes too. Currently, like what we tend to do, and this is where I tie in the title a little bit more, but that's the only part where it actually ties in. The common actions we do right now are broken up into 2 categories. It's either a form of silence or a form of violence, and not like fist violence, but like kind of verbal. So, this is what I tend to do sometimes, is just kind of lay back and let things happen just because I think that things won't change. That's one aspect. And some people try the avoidance aspect where you change the topic or you make a sarcastic, subtle joke without actually saying what you're feeling. And then there's direct attacking methods where you either manipulate the other person to get them to do what you want them to, or you just kind of condescend them, like I said with open source. So yeah, the grumpy parts, the kind of holding it in, and then Hunger Games is actually like attacking. What we're fighting, and like if we ever try to like make a change or a difference in our lives, what we're fighting are like four main things: biological reactions. So if someone really pushes your buttons, you have a lot of adrenaline that kind of rushes up, or you're feeling scared or nervous and anxious. It's really hard to think in that moment and change what you're actually doing. So I have a lot of trouble kind of fighting that. It kind of sneaks up on me. Spontaneity is another thing. You can study, you can plan, but when you're in the moment, and people are really like difficult and diverse. So when you're in the moment, it's hard to like actually reflect back to what you thought before and planned or like thought about. So that's another like really tough aspect of it. And you don't really see you don't see good examples. A lot of pop culture shows, you have a villain, you have a bad side, and a lot of the like badass people are usually the ones that show the bad people that their place, or like condescend them, or like don't really work with them. So, and when you see on Twitter, or like comment sections, you see a lot of bad examples. It's very overwhelming. Good examples are really like hard to find, and you get into these problems with when you're talking to someone and you have like good intentions and you're getting along really well, and for some reason, and this is an example, but like if you rub that person the wrong way, they'll start attacking you, and in whatever way, with a joke or being defensive, and then your instinct is usually to mimic that behavior to kind of defend yourself, and that's it becomes a loop of like it's unending. Like you're copying their actions, and that makes them do more like defensive maneuvers and that kind of stuff. So it like becomes a cycle, and you don't really have a positive outcome because of that. So it's tough, and it requires a lot of thinking and practice, and just how to spot crucial conversations. This is kind of like when you're in the moment, and this is to like plant a seed in your head. It's really hard because of all those reasons on the previous slide. But being aware of how you react and how your behavior is, it really helps to like plant the seed, and maybe like on an off chance you'll realize what you're doing and you'll change it in the moment and take control. And I kind of wrote this, like it's really hard to do it in the moment, but if you have retrospectives like of yourself, or if your friend or colleague is around, it's usually pretty easy to tell like when someone's behavior is leading up to a really bad moment. So having that kind of insight is really good too, to learn from. Some people have physical signs, that's how they exhibit that they're about to like, they're in a crucial conversation, so your stomach gets tight, your eyes get dry. Some of my friends get teary. That's something that like you can kind of train to notice. And like emotional signs, you can kind of tell that you're getting. When I get angry, like at least now, like I can tell that like my face feels red, or like all these like kind of emotions. You can understand the signs, and if you're aware of it, like you can kind of catch it from the get-go. And in behavioral signs too, like raising your voice or becoming animated, or like if I become really quiet, like I don't open up a lot, or I don't tell people what's wrong. So that's something to kind of notice too. And some like high-level concepts, like a lot of this stuff is, you're changing yourself. You're doing a lot of action yourself. And so you got to think about what you can change to control the conversation and bring it to a positive for both people. And then you start with yourself, and then you think about like how you can kind of include the other person too. So, but it's always a personal perspective, and like the Gandhi quote, like change yourself, like so a lot of this stuff, think about, so the second point here is it's a two-way street. So, it's not always like what the other person's doing. It could be what the other person is accusing you to do. So you got to think about it both ways. And like you can have a lot of experiences where people accuse you of doing something like being sexist or making an inappropriate joke when you don't really mean it. So there's certain ways to recover from that and make like still maintain a good relationship. And these are some tools that are in the book that really help. High level, you always want to be respectful and maintain candor. So you don't want to come off as fake. And like a lot of this advice isn't meant to come off as a recipe or be really shallow and fake. You want to be candid and be truthful. Like everyone needs to know what's going on, like actually in your head. And you want to get all the relevant information out to everyone. So being like, everyone should have like the same information to work on. So you should strive towards that. And a free flowing of meeting, a good example of that is if the CEO of a company makes a really like difficult decision for the company, you want to make sure that even though you had to make that decision, you couldn't get a consensus, everyone understands why you're doing that. And they might not agree with it, but they can get behind why you're doing it. And you want to make sure to keep conversations safe for, so people should feel free to say what they're thinking, because otherwise you won't make progress. Like if people feel that you won't understand or you have only your best interests at heart, they won't trust you, they won't be willing to work with you. So you got to make sure that you got to show that we're all working towards a single like mutual win, and that's a big reason why a lot of people I know kind of turn to silence. Is it's easy to just kind of step back and think that things won't change or you saying something won't make a difference, and that happens in companies a lot. And there are a lot of articles about getting people to give good feedback, but if you're kind of intimidating people with you're just imagining like sexual harassment or that kind of stuff, like you're not making it open for progress. And you want to invite others' opinions. It's kind of playing off of making it safe. You want to show interest, that you actually care about other people's opinions. So whatever it's very kind of fluid, and there's not really a best way to do it. But you got to be genuine and show them that their opinion's valued, and you want to hear it. And focusing on what you really want from the conversation is probably key, because when someone starts attacking you and if say you open a pull request on a new project that your first time contributing, and one of the maintainers is abrasive or calling you out, calling you stupid, this is why are you doing it this way, or some random person, it's easy to kind of defend your skill level and try to just maintain face in public or just make yourself feel better. But what you really want out of that conversation is how to make your stuff better. So you could phrase it as, okay, what would you do in this instance? Or there's various ways to kind of frame the conversation to get to the end goal actually, and not give in to other people's kind of luring of going into that loop of fighting or not making progress. And a little related to that, if you do get kind of pulled into some sort of negative conversation that's kind of dwindling down to just arguing, not real fruitful conversation, you can kind of step back and look at what's actually going on. And this is really hard, but there's a couple of ways. Like you can take a pause, or you kind of just get experience. If you plant the seed in your head and try to think about it, you can kind of multitask while it's happening. But you want to look at not what they're actually saying to you, but what they're meaning. And those are two different things. So you want to look at the conditions of how things are rolling together and try to read off of that to make change. And after you step out, there's a few steps what you can do. You can apologize, but that's only if it's warranted. So we all make mistakes. It's not necessarily that it's the other person's fault or the other person is doing something wrong. But like I mentioned, if you say something inappropriate, and it was actually inappropriate, you can apologize and clarify that this is not what I intended, but this is what I intend to do to kind of make sure that doesn't happen again. And you want to create a mutual purpose, to show that you're on the same side. That's Pokey, which is another little grumpy faced cat. So that was to kind of show some mutual bonding. And they have an acronym in the book, the ABCs. I hate acronyms, but it's really good to, as a next step in certain situations. You can, if you're talking with the sales team or marketing team, and they're expecting some unreasonable thing that can be done, and they're pretty insistent on it, you can agree with them. Okay, I get what you're doing. This would be a great tool, but you build on that and you show them okay, this is why it's technically infeasible, or this is where it could fall apart. These are the pit holes and all that kind of stuff. So building, starting with an agreeing point, kind of calms people down. I know it helps me in kind of one-on-ones. You show okay, this is what you're doing well. That really helps kind of frame the rest of the conversation for me to take the feedback a little bit better. And you compare, you show how you see things differently. You don't say this is why you're wrong. You kind of work together to see why things are different, and maybe you're wrong, and it'll help you see both sides better too. And if you're talking to someone who's racist or just a terrible person, you can I guess it doesn't count for racism because you shouldn't understand that. But if someone is has an opinion that you don't agree with, you can show them that you understand, but that doesn't mean that you're agreeing with them. So you can it really helps people to see that they're being heard, and you can get to a better point once that once you're settled on that you're not attacking them or you think they're stupid. So I really like that point. And once you have the conversation, that's not the end of everything. There's more steps to that, and you can really do damage if you don't kind of follow up with that. And then this is kind of in a work context more so, but you talk about what decisions will be made and by which person. You got to tie the loop at the end, because if things get left hanging, that trust, everything you've kind of built on, is destroyed, and the next time it's probably at a worse starting point. So and documenting helps too, that you see that this is what people came out with from that conversation, and there's actually understanding. It's not all a facade. And how we will follow up, I really take it as a professional goal to actually do what I'm going to say. So, you got to follow up and like make sure that there will be steps taken and what that will be. And there's a whole chapter on yeah, but. So people are complicated, and like there's a million like exceptions in different situations. And this book does go through a whole chapter of those, but it's definitely like take these tools and apply them to different situations and learn from them. And they won't fit everything, and sometimes like it's not worth it. And my challenges with this, I briefly touched on it. Like it's still hard to, when you're in the moment, it's hard to step out really. Like remember all the stuff you read and like thought of. And when I do kind of take those steps, I really appreciate the people who kind of get it early on. Like, so some people are already at like a point where they're willing to work with you. So those people are easy to work with, and it's really like helpful to do this. But there are other people who require a little bit more work and who are more like will be attacking you a little bit more after that. And those kind of people, it gets a little harder because I felt like I did a lot of work and like put a lot of emotion into trying to like make it a thing for both of us. But yeah, that's something I still got to work on. And the spontaneity of it, like I get along with a lot of people, so like especially like people in my like immediate network. So when disagreements happen and it doesn't take a positive turn, it really catches me off by surprise. So I'm not like expecting like anywhere remotely to this to happen. So that's something that's been difficult for me too. And this book, yeah, is based. All of this stuff is my perspective on this book. Your perspective will probably be a lot different, but I really encourage you to read it. I'll put these slides up on the meetup page, so this has a link. And thank you. You can, if you read it, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. We can grab a drink and discuss it. And I'll be at the Ginger Man for additional questions if we run out of time. Thanks.